Well, in my opinion, we cannot turn into a reenactment society, refighting the battle of 2014 over and over again. We cannot be turned into canned applause, turned on by politicians to clap them when it suits them and turn back off again when they don't need us. We have to change. We are not being led to independence. We are going to have to lead to independence. So, whatever this movement has been, we must now be something else. We need to put this childishness behind us. We need to stand up. We need to know that the cause is bigger than any one of us and our heads and our sense of we are the people between us who will deliver this. I have looked at every piece of evidence that I can find, and I am telling you this. We now have 50% of this country that we are holding, and they will not go backwards.
You will look across to Grangemouth and you will remind yourself that if our refinery is not retained, then the deindustrialisation of Scotland will be complete. And I take my hat off to Kenny MacAskill, Alex Salmond and others in the Alba party who, to their credit, are ensuring that Grangemouth is at the top of the political agenda, and it will remain so. We will not have our refinery close and our oil be sent to England to be refined instead. That will not happen when our country is independent. Hundreds of thousands who support these parties and many others who are disillusioned with party politics, and all of us in the Scottish independence movement who have a voice, who have the ability to be heard, who are able to articulate the case for our Scottish independence, for our return to the normal state of independence. We are obliged to stand together as one, and some of us are able to say, because I want to represent the needs and the views and the interests of my friends, my family and my neighbours, my schoolmates. The campaign for Grangemouth, as I alluded to earlier, is a national campaign. And I hope with all my heart that every independence supporter in Scotland will put their shoulder behind the campaign to save that refinery. We will see within our independence movement great change. The change that John Swinney alluded to this week, and the change that I hope Graham McCormack will enable to be delivered, so that all voices in our movement can be heard collectively and we can work collaboratively towards doing what Nelson Mandela said we should do, and that was to make sure that poverty was not a charity, but that it was the delivery of justice. Hope is the greatest weapon when all else seems to be lost.
These are dark times. The British government is funneling arms to Israel for a genocide. 2 days after the Israelis slaughtered aid workers, David Cameron signed off on fresh arms for the genocidal state. This is barbarism, it's savagery, genocide, and Starmer waiting in the wings. All endorse the genocide. When the election comes across the UK, it will effectively be a vote for genocide Sunak or genocide Starmer. You can vote for genocide or genocide. If you stand with Palestinian freedom around this world, you're on the right side of history. And if you stand against it, you're one of the villains, and we will never, ever, ever forget. If you're capable of supporting genocide, you're capable of anything. We want a health service. We want no homeless people sleeping on the streets. That's why we want independence. But we also want a clean foreign policy. We also want a break with endless war. A break from the likes of Cameron. A break from the likes of Johnson. We have the future in our hands. It can either be bright with independence, and we can break this British state, which is a pustule on the face of humanity. And if they don't break it in London, hoping we can break off a big bit up here.
In other words, the Israeli lobby owns our political class. They want them, they push them, they pay them to support Israel, no matter what Israel does, no matter how badly Israel behaves. They've put enormous pressure on the organisers of All Under One Banner, saying, why are you conflating Scottish independence with Palestinian issues? It's obvious. Surely we can all see the parallels. It's not in Israel's interests for Scotland to have independence. The moment Scotland gets independence, and it is coming, our day will come, out will go the nuclear weapons. Now, Israel routinely violates and ignores UN rules, regulations and sanctions, and is allowed to do so unchallenged because British and American politicians are under its influence and will veto or abstain from any anti-Israel resolutions. That's why presidents talk down Scotland's independence, and others tell us we're too small to go it alone. Israel is not even the size of a South African game park. Imagine if Scotland could wield the same influence globally. We care about humanity. We don't want the blood of innocents on our hands, but that is exactly what the Tories are doing to us. Britain is supplying weapons made in Scotland that are being used on children, women, and even babies still in the womb. Westminster is sending weapons, drones, and other arms that are being used by a genocidal force on a civilian population. They're doing it in our name. The sooner we get independence, the sooner we can turn around to the military-industrial complex and say, nah, not in our name. We say no more political cover to continue the genocide, no more British weapons to use in genocide, no British boots on the ground. Scotland should not be part of that evil cabal. Independence is our right. We should be demanding it and demanding it now.
Harold Macmillan said, from a security point of view, a robust population of 3 or 4 Highlanders at Fort William is much more to my taste than the rather mixed population of the cosmopolitan city of Glasgow. So I don't know what was cosmopolitan, whether it was just the Glaswegians were bolshy or whether there were too many Irish in Glasgow. Whatever it was that Macmillan had in mind, he certainly was a bit scared of Glasgow. Be a mistake to put down what will become a major nuclear target so near to the 3rd largest and most overcrowded city in this country. We now have around 200 nuclear bombs on our Clyde, just 30 miles down the river there. The Trident missiles themselves regularly go back to the US for servicing. Let them keep them.
It is important in these times that we continue to make sure that independence is seen as the very important prospect for our country. It is the only thing that can go to challenge the unfair treatment of our people by the Westminster government. And we need to do everything that we can to take that message to the street, that we need to win every single possible seat we can in that election, that the status quo is not good enough for the people of Scotland. The status quo is for attacks on the people of Gaza. It is for children being bombed from above, starving to death, not in our name. And the denial of democracy for the people of Scotland, not allowing us to have our say on the future that we want. We need more than ever to stand together, to call for independence, to go out there and advocate for independence, to have those conversations in the queue for the bus or waiting at the shops. We need to have those conversations. We need to be bold, we need to be brave, and we need to talk up the importance of independence, because it cannot be right that in this wealthy country that we have, that children are going to bed with empty bellies. It cannot be right
that money is being squandered on bombs, when our old people can't get a fair state pension, when the WASPy women are being hard done by, when there is not compensation for the people who have suffered in the contaminated blood scandal, for the people who have been the victims of the Post Office Horizon scandal. All of these things happen under Westminster's watch, and we say no more, not in our name. Tell them that we are in Scotland and we are not going away. Independence is bigger than any one party and any one person. But if you want to make it happen, you need to vote for it, and you need to get out there and advocate for it. Thank you very much.
Because the time for independence is now. It has never been more needed. We were lied to in 2014. We are now paying. But no issue makes the case for independence more than the energy situation. Those of us here believe in independence and believe that Scotland should be a nation state, irrespective. Other people require to be persuaded. But the one thing that makes the case is the situation that you have an energy-rich country and you have a people who are in fuel poverty. That makes the case for independence. We should be wealthy, and instead our people are huddling, trying to keep warm. It is simply perverse that we are energy rich and yet we're fuel poor, because we're a resource to be enjoyed and to be exploited. Scotland, Osborne was quite clear, that's ours. Why is it ours? Well, they like to enjoy it. If their kids can't get into Oxford or Cambridge, they can come up to St Andrews or Edinburgh or Glasgow. They can come up and enjoy the Edinburgh Festival, and they can even come up and enjoy hunting, shooting, fishing on our hills and our glens. But more importantly than that, we're a resource to be exploited. We're a resource not just in oil and gas, but now in renewable energy, and they know that. The situation is, though, we're getting no revenue for it. We're getting no work from it. I can go down to Dunbar Harbour and I see turbines now out in the River Forth. There's almost 40 now, and that's just one field. There will be hundreds, and yet Methil lies idle. They're bringing the turbines up from down south or even from across the seas. The work is going elsewhere, and even the jobs are going elsewhere, because I've had constituents sailing out of Montrose who were laid off and replaced by South Asian labour being exploited. Why is that? Because if you're more than 12 miles out, you're out with the maritime limits, and the employment wages, the employment laws and the minimum wage doesn't apply. So we're getting no business, no work, we're being ripped off. That's just the situation with renewable energy. People in East Lothian can see the turbines and the Lammermuirs, and they can see the turbines, and yet we're going to get our environment damaged because they want it fast and cheap, and they'll put up pylons rather than cabling it, and yet we can't afford to heat our homes. It's a replication of what happened with oil. Norway discovered oil and got immensely rich. We discovered oil, as Jim Siller said, and have seen an industrial desert made. 40 years ago, the big fight was the miners' strike, but now in oil and gas, the big fight is Grangemouth refinery. We have to make a stand for that. And yet what are we seeing? A UK government that's selling us out. The ethylene plant has been shut. At the same time, the UK government is giving 600 million euros to INEOS to open a brand new plant in Antwerp. Scottish workers are being made redundant. Belgian workers are being supported on the money that the UK government's getting from North Sea oil that comes ashore up north east and comes in the 40s pipeline down to Grangemouth. That's why Grangemouth is our fight. We've got to ensure that we're not deindustrialised. The knock-on effect would be significant. It's vital for the fuelling not just of our cars but of our industry. It's vital for the fuelling of our aviation sector. It's for that reason that we have to stand by Grangemouth. At the end of the day, this belongs to us. It's our oil. It should be refined here. It cannot be Grangemouth no more. What it must be Union no more. For that, we need a strategy, we need our movement back together, and we need to be pushing for independence, not running from it or hiding from it. Thank you.
Just over the last few weeks, I just thought to myself, with these walks, I thought when I got out of bed this morning, what's the point? With politicians like we have in Scotland, with a few exceptions, such as the one we've just heard, what chance have we of regaining our independence? And I'm still not sure about the answer. I can't help thinking that the Scottish Government, after 10 years post-India, still have no workable plan for getting us to independence. go out and persuade the people of the case until the polls reach 60%. Quite frankly, not good enough. Why would folk vote for independence if they didn't know how it was going to be achieved? What the route to independence was. This has to be clarified. How can we have confidence in our leaders who don't have a clear prospectus and don't have a clear route for getting us to independence? And I think more than anything else, what failed us in 2014 was lack of confidence of the Scottish people in the leaders of the independence movement. So, what do we have to do? I think, first of all, the importance of independence has to be stressed when talking, just as we were hearing from Kenny there, when talking about all important issues in Scotland, whether it's Grangemouth, whether it's heating your home, whether it's dealing with poverty in the community, whether it's providing houses, especially in rural areas, dealing with job insecurity, the lack of transport infrastructure, all these things are tied up with the colonial status of Scotland within the United Kingdom. We need full control to address all these issues as we here know. But we have to talk about independence not in isolation from everything else, but as a part of everything else. Secondly, as I've said, we have to have a viable route to independence. It's not going to be consensual. It's going to be a fight, a struggle, and we're going to have to take it and not wait for it. We have to take population with us, and it's not going to be a referendum, so it's going to have to be a majority, probably the list at a Scottish election. We've got to be prepared when we fight that election. We need a prospectus that demonstrates the opportunities of independence and actually addresses the obstacles. In other words, currency and all these associated things. I think also we need an expert-led business plan for the transition. We need to get folk who have got expertise, whether it's in economics, whether it's in business, whether it's in agriculture, whatever, who can help us to produce this plan. One thing we also need is a national convention to draw in representatives from all over Scotland, from civic organisations across Scotland. We have to entice people like the STUC and other civic organisations to join us. The Independence Forum, of which I'm involved, is planning for one on St Andrew's Day. That may seem rather late in the day, but on the other hand, there's probably going to have been an election before then, and the situation will be rather clearer where we are at that time. But we would like groups from all regions of Scotland. We've got good representation from the Highlands and Islands, from the North East, from Fife, and also from Edinburgh and Lothians. But we need people to get in touch with us from the west of Scotland. To the website, independenceforum.scot. We must rebuild this movement and not blindly, I think, follow the politicians who so far have failed us.
When the British Empire was expanding, they always used trading companies as the vanguard. The most infamous of these was the East India Trading Company. These companies took over large areas of land, they set up trading posts, brought in soldiers, ran them according to their own rules, as opposed to the rules of the country they were in. They occupied strategic places like ports. They exploited the natural resources of the country, paid the locals a pittance to work the mines, to pick the cotton, to pick the tobacco. It goes on. They made vast profit from all this, and they haven't paid it back. Well, guess what? That is precisely what free ports are. Free ports are going to be taking over vast areas of land of Scotland. The fourth port is 75 kilometres. Cromarty and Firth, 45 kilometres. Another layer has been added to this as well, and they are called Special Enterprise Zones. Well, together, these areas cover most of the industrial and strategic national assets of Scotland. These zones will be run by private business consortia as tax havens. They won't pay local income tax, and they won't be subject to the same rules: employment rights, health and safety, planning, minimum wage, national insurance. Forget it. Out of these places, our newest, probably one of our most important industries is going to be run, renewable energy. And the contracts attached to these places are anything from 10 to 25 years. If you're a business outside of one of these zones, tough. You'll be priced out by having to pay minimum wages and national insurance and income tax. If you're a cash-strapped council, tough. You're going to have a big hole knocked in your budget by SEZs, using resources that they're not paying for. That's before we even get on to what is encircled in these zones. Let's name a few places. Grangemouth, Methil, Rosyth, Leith, Edinburgh Airport, Edinburgh City, the oil and gas facilities of Cromarty and Firth. This is Scotland's future. All our major ports, our airports, our capital city, our oil refinery, our deep docks, our oil and gas facilities, our renewable energy facilities and energy resources will be under the control of private consortia, operating to their own set of rules in breach of the laws of Scotland. And just to put the lid on it, Jim Radcliffe of Ineos has reapplied for fracking licences. Is this freedom? Is this the independence we want? No. And we didn't vote for it. Like North Sea Oil and Gas, Westminster handed over this land to the companies under the auspices of the Crown. This is the UK's post-colonial gift to us, and it's a poisoned one. We will be exchanging one kind of colonialism for another. Westminster for the East India Company. Scotland's lands and its resources do not belong to the monarch, but to the people. That has opened the door to the possibility of a legal challenge under the Scottish Constitution. But all of us need to be going back to our parties, our organisations, and raising the roof. Now it's time we act for independence. Let's get Freeport stopped.
Keep a brave heart on independence, keep marching, keep talking, but mostly, let's get some action.
It is clear that we are in the middle of a battle between them and us, the haves and have-nots. We have had years and years and years of talk on many issues, and we will not tolerate talk on this issue. Make good on ending the arms sales. Make good on breaking the ties with the Israeli companies. Make good on the boycott. Make good on attacking the Israeli genocide, because that link is very real when you need a hospital, a dentist, a doctor, a teacher or a nurse, and all the money's been diverted into arms to Israel or to the widening war in Iran or Lebanon or Yemen. That the Scotland that we see in the future is a Scotland free of British imperialism, warmongering.
Because the way we'll win mass support for independence, building up a radical picture of what that independence will look like, and mobilising people around that picture. And it's not just about a future vision of independence, it's about how we'll actually achieve independence in the short term, because we'll do that by linking the demand for independence to wider radical demands in society. For example, if you want to get rid of nuclear weapons, support independence. If you want to get rid of the monarchy and have a republic, support independence. If you want to bring key industries back into public ownership, support independence. If you want to eliminate poverty and have a more equal society, support independence. In other words, it's by linking the struggle, day-to-day radical struggles, to the wider issue of independence that will build mass support. Because at the end of the day, independence can't simply be an end in itself. It needs to be a means to building a better, different, radically different Scotland. That's how we'll build that majority, that working class majority for independence. We believe there should be a publicly owned, integrated public transport system. More than that, it should be delivered free at the point of use, as a way of moving people from cars into public transport. We believe that utilities should be brought back into public ownership. We believe that one of the ways to abolish poverty is to have a statutory £15 an hour minimum wage. We believe that proper funding of local government needs to be a top priority, and one of the ways of doing that is the abolition of the unfair and ineffectual council tax. The way to have a parliament that genuinely represents the people of Scotland is to have MPs and MSPs on a worker's wage so that they reflect the incomes of the people there.
We're living through a fringe moment in history that has sprung from a series of crises. I come here today with a heartfelt plea to you all. All parties and individuals must unite. The left must unite. We all need to end this petty infighting from all sides, including the SNP, Alba, the Greens, the Socialists and their politicians. We need to listen more and engage in respectful debate on all issues without fear or vilification. I refuse to be complicit in genocide. Legitimate criticism of the mass murder of innocent civilians is not anti-Semitism. Zionism is an ultra-nationalist, racist ideology that denies the basic principles of Judaism, such as peace and tolerance of others. So why is Palestine of such importance to Scottish independence? The answer is quite simple. No one is free until everyone is free. Meanwhile, as the world looks on to the horrific suffering, mass murder, brutalisation and starvation of innocent civilians in Gaza, we are forced to watch helpless, horrified and unable to prevent the unfolding genocide. Atrocity and human rights violations have no excuses, no mitigating arguments. The EU's single energy market ensures that energy suppliers are forbidden from skyrocketing prices, profiteering and price discrimination. We cannot fight transboundary issues like climate change, pandemics or wars alone. We need to be on a global platform with other world leaders, sitting not only with the European Union but also with the United Nations and the World Trade Organisations. I remain defiant, steadfast and committed to our common cause of an independent Scotland taking its seat at the top table. If you're not sitting at the top table, you are on the menu. With full sovereign autonomous powers, Scotland can take back control of our own socio-economic policies for much needed radical change. More jobs, greener jobs, harnessing the vast untapped potential of North Sea tidal energy will provide cheaper, cleaner energy, reducing living costs, and will provide a proper income rather than the miserable low-wage economy that has condemned workers since Thatcher and New Labour. A winning economic plan for Scotland is building clean energy and clean growth, because in the 21st century, the great powers will be green powers, and an independent Scotland must be a great power. We must re-establish the consensus for a Scottish clean growth strategy. We must meet the challenge for economic reconciliation, meaning leadership by the Scottish people, in partnership and in prosperity at every stage. We are living through an age of insecurity, but it could become an age of prosperity. Scotland must be brave and resist any further oppression of our fundamental democratic right to live in peace, dignity and respect in our own sovereign Scotland, a Scotland based on common values and, most importantly, the most basic of all human rights, self-determination. Scotland, be brave.
Yes, we all agree we need public housing. I think everyone here would agree with that idea, more council housing. Saying we want more council housing does not deliver council housing. If you want to achieve council housing, you start by saying that brownfield site right there, that must be 400 homes. The SNP council's attempted privatisation of that land. First off, we held outside rallies, we started to build the cause, but then we took direct action. We occupied the site of the land and we said, we're not just against you, we're not just against your privatisation. Here is our counter proposal. This is what we intend to do instead. We intend to run a community buyout. We established a company. We established permanent presence on the site. We got a petition going to start the first stage of a community buyout. That caused the buyers to back off. That section of the independence movement that's represented in the council do after they attempted to privatise the land next to our homes. Well, they came for our homes. 600 social homes. The council want to see them demolished in the middle of a housing and homelessness emergency. This is the same council that has declared a housing and homelessness emergency that is attempting to demolish 600 social homes. A 3-year struggle ensued from that point. We have had support from a number of different activist groups, which has been great. They've helped us with direct action. We occupied some of those homes, so that was useful. The longer it goes on, the more it costs them money. And we need to apply that same type of specific tactics to the independence movement. We held a referendum. Let's have a people's vote on whether or not we tear down 600 social homes during a housing and homelessness emergency. Would it surprise you to hear that we won by over 75%? The council has now backed off. They no longer want to sell off our community centre. They no longer want to build yuppie flats where our community centre lies. They've upped the number of social homes they intend to build. If you fight on a specific and measurable issue, widely felt, deeply felt, visible, winnable, you can move the dial. As that struggle also shows, we have an independence movement. People aren't just interested in independence in the abstract. They want to see improvements in their day-to-day lives. So the movement as a whole needs to create not just one Kalina Street, but hundreds of Kalina Streets. If we can force progressive change through specific and measurable actions, then we can regain the mantle and get more and more people into big rallies like this and force action towards independence.
They turned off the water, the electricity, bombed all towns and cities, from the river to the sea. Tens of thousands slaughtered, millions displaced. Zionist crimes on humanity bring shame to the human race. The charities are targeted and the blockade the aid. Use hunger as a weapon to starve the refugee. And the death toll keeps on rising through famine and disease. Zionist crimes on humanity bring shame to the human race. They call us extremists, anti-Semite, for refusing to be complicit with their genocide. We march in our millions, black, brown and white, declared into the world, we stand with Palestine, we stand with Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. From the sea to the river, Palestine live forever. Free, free, Palestine. Free, free, Palestine. Thank you.